Welcome to Basketball Wales podcast, where we find out a little bit more about what goes on in the Basketball Wales community. Croeso I pod pel basged. I'm John Bunyan, and today we're with the Mold Basketball Club. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Basketball Wales podcast, Croeso pod pel basged. The pleasure today of introducing some representatives from Mold Basketball Club. We have brothers James and Robert Morgans, who formed the club back in 2000. Joe Robinson, coach, referee, and current chair of North Wales Basketball Association, and National League, BBL, and national team player Alan Duper. Welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
It's great to have you on, guys. Looking to you about basketball at your club in North Wales and some national team stuff, which I know you've all had various degrees of involvement in. So we'll get straight into it. I'm going to start with you, James. You mentioned that you formed a club with your brother, Rob, back in 2000. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Rob? James, how did it start?
It started with about 6 or 7 guys just having a bit of a scrimmage for fun, really. Me and Rob both moved up to North Wales in '95 from South Wales. We played a bit in primary school and high school in South Wales in Puthcall Comprehensive, and yeah, later on, then 5 years after being up in North Wales, we started scrimmaging with a few friends from school, and it's kind of the club kind of escalated. There was no plans to start a basketball club. It was literally just let's have a bit of fun playing basketball, and 20 years on, we've got about 100 continuous members that come to the club, and about 65 of them registered to play in teams. So it escalated quite well, I suppose.
Okay. So so you started it together. What were the challenges that you had at the beginning? Did you have any, or did it sort of just fall into place nicely and just evolved over time?
I'd say the challenges we had when we first started was not really knowing much about perhaps playing competitive basketball. We got whooped for a couple of years. We were the whipping boys in the league for a couple of years, by many points. And as I said, that's sort of grown as well as the club's grown. That's grown. Our knowledge of basketball's grown. And we are no longer the whipping boys of the league. And also, I think, as we started to develop as well, we started to attract more players. I mean, out of the original 7 or 8 of us that started scrimmaging, there's only me and Rob that are still with the club. I suppose if we walked away, perhaps there might not be a club. I don't know, but there's only me and Rob that's left. Joe's coming up now to take over, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe one day.
See him raising his eyebrows a little bit.
Okay, that's really interesting. Rob, obviously you're the good-looking sort of brother, obviously. What was your involvement, Rob? And perhaps tell us a little bit about sort of some of the age groups that you've got in the club at the moment and how the club is sort of structured.
Well, just what James said, we both started it. We used to be like an old club called Mo Jazz. We used to play for when I was a kid, and then that finished. And then when we started Mo Magic up, for a couple of years it was just seniors, and then James started with the juniors a few years down the line. And in my role, I'll try and help out with a bit of coaching. I've really only coached under 16s, under 18s, that age group. So it's just all started from that, really. So
Rob's not keen on the younger kids, are you, Rob?
Well, no, I'm maybe a bit more shouty, so I don't feel comfortable if I want to shout at a little kid, but I can shout at under 16s, under 18s a little bit. But so yeah, so
that's your niche, Rob. Do they shout back at you, or do they just take it?
Oh, they can do. Under 18s can have a little. That could be cheeky, like I've had a few under 18s that can be cheeky. I used to coach Joe. He always used to pipe up now and again.
Only now and then.
Still does.
He looks like a cheeky chap as well. Yeah. So just tell us. So involved perhaps 16s and 18s. James, you've got age groups lower than that as well.
Yeah. We've started. I mean, we've got under 14s that play in the league, and we've got under 12s that are last couple of years have started playing in sort of pre-range tournaments by NWBA because it's not really a league for under 12s. And then last year I started 4 to 7-year-old session, so minis. And unfortunately, obviously, everything with COVID has sort of knocked that on the head at the minute. And well, it's knocked everything on the head, but that was going quite well actually. We had 15 turning up for that for a 45-minute session with the little ones, and they're not playing basketball, but they're learning all the fundamental movements they need to develop into basketball players as they get a bit older. So yeah, it's good. It's good. That session's good. It's a nice little session. That. So yeah, it's right through because I think one of our oldest players is 40, 41. So the club's going right through from 4 years old right the way through to the 40s. So
brilliant. Got a wide range there. I think it's great that you've got the little ones started, and the younger you can start them, the better, isn't it? And keep hold of them. And
I figured at
that's great. It's a shame that the pandemic.
Yeah, I figured at some point we've got to start competing with the likes of rugby and football that are starting the kids so young, and give the kids that like basketball a bit of a fighting chance from a younger age. So
Definitely. Yeah.
Maybe more school.
We'd up with regards to the football and the rugby. Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks, guys. Joe, he's waiting there patiently. I know he's eager to jump in. Yeah, but you've got an interesting story. You started in the club around about the age of 12 in 2009, and you've gone through the club, and it sounds like you've found yourself a home there, and now you're involved, and James is looking for you to take over now. So tell us a little bit about your story, how it started, and what your involvement is now.
Well, to be honest, I used to play football mainly as my main sport. And then I think it was in year 7 or year 8, the school ran some kind of basketball competition for comic relief or sport relief. I entered and went quite well, so I just joined the club. And yeah, like you said, fell in love with it really. I've been there pretty much every Friday for the last 13 years and more so. So I started playing, would have been 12, but obviously we didn't have an under 12s league. So under 14s all the way up to under 18s. Then I went to uni, but I went to Bangor University anyway. So, so that's obviously in Wales as well. But whilst I was there, I stayed registered for the club. And when they used to come play Carnarvon Celts, who unfortunately don't have a senior team anymore, I'd kit up now and then to play. Yeah. And then obviously still playing now. And with regards to like coaching, when I was about under 16s potentially, I used to just like help out a bit. Really, wasn't really coaching. And then did my coaching qualification, and I kind of took more of a role really. And I still wasn't like the coach of any of the teams until I came back from university really. And then since then, from about 22, I've been coaching the under 14s and the under 16s. I'm not actually sure how much I'll be coaching this year because I've unfortunately got a new job which works shifts. So unfortunately, that would be taking me away for some evenings. But luckily, we play games on Tuesdays and trainings on Friday, so I should be able to make at least one. But we still kind of need to sort that dynamic out in the group because when I got that job, obviously the COVID pandemic started and stuff, so we kind of just need to work out that dynamic between the coaching staff really on how we're going to work that out. But yeah, I love it, man. You wouldn't think most 25-year-olds would spend their Friday night in a leisure centre, but yeah, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I think obviously we need people like you, Joe, to inspire the next generation. Sounds like you immerse yourself in terms of, coaching, refereeing, and obviously the administration stuff as well with North Wales, which we'll come on to in a minute. Yeah, so you're coaching the younger age groups there. So have James and Robert had an influence on you over the years in terms of your coaching style?
Yeah, they're definitely chalk and cheese in regards to coaching styles. you wouldn't think they were brothers if you ever actually played basketball or with them, really. But I'm like, I try to. It's hard to find that right balance because obviously we only see the kids for coaching 1 hour a week due to facilities and other commitments. So it's setting realistic expectations of their levels and how much they can learn in that period of time. But obviously the competitive nature does come out, and sometimes I might get a bit shouty, but I do try to be a little bit more fun per se, especially if I'm coaching with James or somebody. They're obviously older, being 25. Some of the kids I think sometimes don't necessarily see me as much of a coach, but obviously when the older ones are there, it's quite good to have like a dynamic, maybe good cop, bad cop in some ways. But
okay, you've got a couple of good guys around you there, so I'm sure that you'll develop your own style over time and enhance your skills and your experience. So sounds great. Well done for what you do. I think it's great that like you say, 25-year-olds spending their Friday nights, helping young people in the community, which is great. So well done,
Cheers.
Joe. Great stuff. Alan, he's there somewhere, the big man.
Okay.
Alan, tell us, you've got quite an interesting story. Obviously, good to see you. You've got an interesting story, and obviously you've been around the basketball circuit in North Wales and the north of England as well. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Alan, where you started, how you started playing basketball, and a little bit about where you've been and some of your experiences at club level.
Yeah, so I kind of started playing basketball a bit later. I was like 14, 15. I used to play badminton in Flint Leisure Centre, and I got seen by Vic Fleming. Obviously, he's down your way, Vic. And just he got to start playing basketball, and from then I kind of got in with the Welsh setup. And luckily at that time, obviously, it was Flintshire Flyers back in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of got with the National League program and kind of worked my way up from there. We kind of folded in I think it was 2000, and then went to Manchester Magic for a couple of seasons with Jeff Jones. And then I played for Liverpool for a year. Newey Nets kind of formed, I think, around about 2003. We had the Newey Nets, and then in regards to Mould as well, I've kind of we've had National League through Mould Magic as well, which is really good.
Yeah.
But I've played all around locally: Manchester, Liverpool, Newey, Warrington, Wolves, Div 3 with Delmy, Herringman, and Sefton. So I've been around.
Been around the block.
Been around
a bit, Alan. Yeah. So, but it's fetched you back to Mould, sort of obviously where you started. So that's quite nice. I would have thought, sort of, as a player that's with experience now, coming back and helping and play with some of the local players. Yeah.
Well, I went to school with James as well, so I kind of there was some, obviously after schools he used to come along now and again and have a little game of basketball with him. But obviously before the club started, and always kind of like I did play National League, I'd pop by and always see the local league teams too. So I'd always come down and see Mould. So and then obviously now, Mould through and through now.
Good.
Through and through.
It's we see you on the Facebook pages, down in the MVPs at quite a lot of games. I guess you enjoy sort of being involved in the North Wales League now and doing your stuff up there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm coming to the end of my days now. But I just love basketball, and I think the Mould Club setup is great, and the team bonding is brilliant, and I think it's all about teams. I've played on quite a few local league teams where there's players just want to come and play and not have any kind of social, but I like the dynamics at Mould. There's a great team spirit, and I'll be playing out my days here at Mould.
Good man, great stuff. I'm sure that the guys around Mould appreciate having you around and your experience. So sounds great. Guys, it fetches me nicely on to sort of national team stuff. Alan, you mentioned that there, and I'll come back to you in a minute. All of you have had some kind of involvement with national teams, so it's great to hear about the club. It's great to find out a little bit of history and how you started, but obviously you've all got sort of playing, coaching experience with national teams. So it's great to represent at various levels, where either be a coach or a player. Just want to sort of touch on that now and talk about your experience. So I'm gonna start with James again and come back to you in terms of your involvement with the national teams. James, tell us a little bit more about your coaching stuff and what you've done.
Well, I started out with helping out Lee Coulson. I can't think of the dates now. I was helping out Lee Coulson with the under-16 team and the under-16 girls team, and then it moved in swiftly into a head coach role with the under-18 girls team, and that was a really good 4 years. I really enjoyed working with the Welsh program and the girls. I enjoyed working with Darren when he was involved, because Darren was performance manager then, wasn't he? During that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a great experience. The girls program for the under-18s was really strong then. I'm not sure. I haven't really kept up to speed with what they're doing at the minute, but we managed to get a bronze in Gibraltar, which was great. And you could see them developing and speaking with other national team coaches around the tournaments, and sort of Louis Romero, that was coaching Scotland at the time. He was saying to me the other day that he was so impressed with how well the Welsh girls perform on the basis of that they don't really have a strong home program within Wales for girls to develop basketball. There's no girls teams in North Wales. I know you'd want girls programs down in South, John. But again, it's not very competitive for girls to develop their skills to compete at an international ground, is it, in Wales at the minute? Which is something that I think definitely needs improving across Wales, definitely in North Wales, 100%.
I think there's plans afoot to sort of do some more development work around that. Certainly, there's bits and pieces going on in South Wales, but it could always be stronger, and certainly some help and development stuff for you guys up in North. So hopefully that'll come to fruition shortly. James, you mentioned that you medalled in Gibraltar. So obviously based on what you've just said, you're obviously up against it with regards to the development of girls in Wales. So what was your sort of secret to success?
I think
Tournament then, do you think?
I think we worked really hard in preparation for that tournament in particular, all the tournaments, but for that tournament in particular, and we really got the girls to dig deep on things like defense, and they worked hard all the way up to the tournament, and it's we didn't get anywhere near Scotland, but we were in it with Andorra, Gibraltar, and Malta, and I think more momentum with that girls program and introducing new players, then they'll just keep competing with those those Division C countries. It was a good time.
Great, sounds like a good experience. Thanks, James. Brilliant. Rob, I know that you've had some experience playing yourself, National League, and obviously going back to your younger days, you represented Wales as well.
Yeah, when I was down South Wales in primary school, just represent Wales. You used to go on a course for a week. You get picked to go from school, and you get a chance to try out to get in the team. And I did that. I think we did about twice over so many years. And then we decided that we moved up here when I was about 14. Couldn't really find many places where I played. Eventually, I found a national team in Conway. I played there for about a season. I was getting a little bit older then, and it was getting a bit far. And I think I was about 17, pushing 18. And obviously, socialising kind of took over for a little bit. I kind of left from that bit then. And then also we played Div 4 in Mole for a season. They did actually do 2 seasons, but the second time round, getting a bit older, bit of back problems, and I couldn't really do the training twice a week and going away at weekends, and I decided not to go with the second season that we had there. National wise, team wise, that's about my experience really with it.
Yeah. That's good. So 2 things, Rob. I understand, obviously, with school level, you would have represented Wales at a younger age. A lot of people listening to this, perhaps, sort of are only familiar with what goes on now and perhaps not realise that younger age groups, back in your day. So I'm thinking sort of mid 90s, yeah. So it's always been.
It was Frank Dorjohn that was running the programme.
Right. Yeah.
Down at Ogmore.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. There's not much. I don't think there's much opportunity doing that up here nowadays. Of course, week camps away doing that type of thing. I thought it was quite a big popular thing down South Wales. Around the 90s that time.
Yeah.
But as I say, when I moved up here, I couldn't really find anywhere at first that did basketball that much. My dad actually went to see the Chester Jets, see if they had like a junior team. I don't think they had a setup then years ago. He said you can always come down and have a little train, but I was a little bit intimidated, but there's some big guys there.
Okay.
Well, I feel playing.
So yeah.
Great. The other thing I was going to say, a lot of people listening to this as well won't realise that you guys, as a basketball club, were obviously involved at National League level as well. So for a small club, to sort of compete National League is commendable. So well done, guys, on what you've done. It's really sort of, hopefully this story will sort of resonate with people around Wales and make people realise what does go on, and people like yourself who are obviously do a lot of hard work to make sure that's really interesting. Thanks, Rob. Brilliant. Joe, I'm going to come on to you. I know you've had some representation for Wales as well, and tell us a little bit about your journey there.
My national career could basically be written on the back of a postcard, probably. Under 14s, under 16s, under 18s, I was on the fringe of the FIBA squads. Never really got in. Played a couple of friendly games, the trials really for the team. Never really got in. But to be fair, I play point guard, so that's probably the most dominated position in Wales. We don't have particularly many big men really who play the game. So there was some very good players that played my positions who, I was competing against, and a lot of them played National League whilst I was only playing local league. So the competition was hard. Then I got a call up when I was at uni to play under 23s against Scotland. So I got 2 caps there, which was, really proud of. That was nice. It was a good experience. As for National League, again, I played 1 season for Glyndor Nets at the time, and then unfortunately they folded due to financial reasons, I think, and not being able to get the numbers. And then I was too young to play for Mould Magic when they played National League, which is very upsetting. I've been trying to get James to get us back there for a few years, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be escalating. I played a Bucks level for Bangor University, and I played a season at Chester as well. And then I played a season at D2 for Chester as well, but that was very minutes. But yeah, in the national side, I think it's definitely harder for people from the north to get into the teams, just because, for one, it's a massive commitment. When I used to want to go down to trial days, it was my dad would drive 4 hours in the morning. I'd train for however many hours, and my dad would drive 4 hours back. You don't really appreciate it as much when you're a kid, but when you grow up, you realise how difficult that is. And sometimes, you'd get a hotel the night before and the night of, and we'd be spending £100 on a hotel for me to go train and play basketball. So it was a massive commitment. It's difficult, especially there's no real. I mean, no, James used to coach down there, but there's not many coaches on the national setup who are from the north. So when you go down there as like a 16-year-old lad, it's very intimidating, especially when a lot of the coaches from like Swansea Storm, stuff like that, and the players there and the coaches know each other, so they've kind of got a more friendly basis. And it was definitely intimidating going down there and not knowing anybody, and often being one of the only lads from the north going. It was definitely a good experience. I'm very proud I played, but it was difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your story there. I think what Basketball Wales are looking to do at the moment is perhaps regionalise the national team programme, so that it's based north, mid, and south, so that we sort of eradicate some of the challenges that you've highlighted there, Joe. So it's a fair point and one well made by yourself. But I think for all of you, and I'll come on to Alan in a minute, but to represent your country as a coach or a player is a tremendous thing to do. And we're all Welsh, and we're all very proud to be Welsh, aren't we? So when you put on that tracksuit and that vest, it's a proud moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely. Alan, you're well decorated at national team level, and you've
lots of mileage down to South Wales anyway.
You've represented at a number of FIBA tournaments, I understand. So tell us a little bit more about some of the highlights for you, Alan.
Yeah, no, like Joe said, to play for your country, it's a great experience. I mean, the travelling as well, just seeing different places. I mean, I started in 2004 with the men's Welsh team in the Small Nations, and they were every 2 years. My first experience was in Andorra, and that was a hell of an experience. Some of the teams we had, Azerbaijan were playing, obviously Andorra were just really, really good, just great competition. But it's just great to get everyone together. I used to love obviously traveling down and these tryouts. They're just really, really, down in South Wales. I used to love it. But yeah, I was lucky. I went from 2004 all the way through to 2016. I only missed 2014, which was in Gibraltar. So I played in Andorra, Albania, Scotland, Malta, San Marino, and Moldova being the last one. And it's such a great experience. You live like a pro for 5 to 8 days. Do you know what I mean? So it's such a great thing. I've been really lucky.
No, that's great. Can you or do you know, Alan, how many caps you had over the years?
I think I did play junior as well, but I can't work it out with the juniors. But with the men's, roughly about 30 caps.
That's just selfish, man.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, those experiences that once you get a taste of it, you want more, don't you? And you want to go back and you want to experience it again. So I'm sure that if you had the chance again, you do it all again. It's
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, guys. Just one last question. I'm just going to throw it out there for you guys with regards to North Wales basketball. Obviously, Wales is split into 2 leagues, North Wales and South Wales basketball leagues, respectively. What's the state of North Wales basketball at the moment, and where are we in terms of sort of developing, growing, and what does the future look like for us?
I think the future for North Wales basketball is good at the minute. I mean, if you look at the Welsh finals for the seniors, I mean, the trophies come to the north in the last 2 years. So I mean, that's a positive side. But I think North Wales has got a long way to go with their junior development at the minute. It is growing, don't get me wrong. It's not, and it's never going to be on the same scale as South Wales, because you've got Swansea and Cardiff, 2 major cities in Wales, within within a quick motorway drive of each other. So, but I think I was just thinking about this when you talked about National League earlier, and that's one thing that I think North Wales is missing at the minute, is somewhere for the likes of Joe to play National League locally in North Wales and be able to have the same exposure as players from South Wales at junior level. Now I'm talking to compete when they go to national team tryouts, and that's what North Wales is missing. And we tried it; it was expensive. It cost the club a lot of money. It cost the players a lot of money, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at again in the future. But we'll see.
I think leading from that as well, we've got back in the 90s we had Flintshire Flyers, and back then at the local league scene there were so many teams around the area. I forgot how many there were now, but I remember playing in them, and obviously with Cheshire Jets at the time as well doing so well, and then with Flintshire, there's so much buzz with basketball, and it seemed to loads of teams were coming. And we just need to try and get back to that, like James says. If there was a national team for kids to aspire to get to, I mean, around their area, it'd be really good. The National League.
Do you think that's the answer then? Do you think that obviously if there was something for young people and kids to aspire to, that would be a real big sort of plus in terms of getting kids into the game, into the sport, and keeping them in the sport? You got your kids who watch the football and the rugby, and they can aspire to the big stars that they see on the TV. We don't seem to have that in basketball, do we? Within Wales. So do you think that's a key factor to?
I think so. I think it's definitely going to help the program. I think working with primary schools is going to help a bit more. As I know Coulson's doing a lot with primary schools at the minute, under the table, and I think that if that comes to the forefront, I think working in the primary schools, big captive audience, I think that's going to help as well. But joined with having somewhere for them to watch, somewhere for them to aspire to play, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. And obviously North Wales basketball is in good hands with Joe Robinson at the helm, cheering and leading from the front.
To be fair, I have a lot of help from the committee. Yola Jones, who works for Carnarvon Celts, in all honesty, does 99% of the work. She's amazing. Usually she's emailing me to make sure I've done stuff, which is great. My opinion on the North Wales League, I've played in it for 13 years. So it's massively grown. When I was playing under 14s, it was used to just be us and Flint Jets, and we'd have to play each other every week, and it just got boring at one point because one team was better than the other. Won't name any names. And they'd win every week, so there wasn't any competition. And people probably did lose interest. Whereas now we've got a lot more teams, but we just don't have enough. And I think we struggle massively geographically because we've got teams from the Innismon and Carnarvon, and we run a central venue league, so they've got to come all the way to Holywell to play a game. And we've got the 55, but a lot of the time the 55's got work on it or something. And these kids are going on a Tuesday night when they've got school the next day, and they're not getting home until 11. And I think a lot of parents are put off by this. So really, massively, we need to really get more teams in the league to make it more competitive and more interesting. And if there's a local team down the road, people are gonna potentially play. I mean, we have a lot of teams from like Bromborough, and we in our senior teams now we have teams like the Raptors and stuff who are making up a lot of the teams in the league. And it's nice that they're there and they're very good teams, are very competitive. But it'd be nice if we could have more teams actually based in North Wales. And I do think financially basketball is an expensive sport. By the time you pay for the hall hire and the referees and the table officials, a lot of senior teams are put off. I know a couple of people who run local scrimmages in the Flintshire area, but they don't want to put in teams because they can't afford it. But we can't really afford to do it any cheaper. So I know us as a committee have been trying to look at incentives for teams to join first time. And this year we actually managed to get a couple more teams in the Senior Cup by putting incentives in and not charging them entry fees and stuff. But I think going forward, something definitely needs to be done to just try to expand it. Really, like James said, we're never going to be as big as South Wales because we only have 500,000 people in the whole of North Wales. Well, you've got 5 times that down south. But yeah, Googled that just as you asked the question. But yeah, I think it's going in the right direction. It just potentially bigger steps need to be made, really.
Yeah.
But doing that is harder than talking it into existence, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the challenge, even in South Wales, is not that many clubs. In South Wales, we've probably got more in South than North, but comparatively to other sports, there's not that many. So the challenge is definitely, how can we get more kids involved? How can we establish more clubs? Something for Basketball Wales to look at, and it's not easy. But like James has mentioned, there's some really great initiatives that are up and running, some that are on their way. So hopefully with the introduction of those initiatives and getting more kids involved, we'll see the growth of basketball. But listen, guys, I'm gonna draw things to a close now. It's been really interesting speaking to you. Fascinating history, your personal stories, and your national team experience as well. So hopefully people listening to this will enjoy listening to this, and everything you've said. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight, guys. Thanks very much. You are definitely North Wales's answer to ZZ Top. But yeah, listen, guys, it's been great. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And when we get back to playing as normal, we wish you all the best.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For having us.